We have made wife a bad word. And if we can't embrace the word wife and embrace the role of being a wife, we're never going to be a happy wife. And we're certainly never going to be a good wife. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Let's get into our topic of how to become a happy wife in 2026. So with this topic, I'm talking to the women today and helping women to take the path that I am on to being a happy wife and what that actually looks like, how that works, and for the benefit of yourself and for the benefit of your husband and your marriage. So this episode is for you today. And if you're new, or this is a video potentially that your husband has shared with you, my message is for women married to good men that want to see themselves as the problem, take responsibility and accountability for their part and role in the issues in the marriage. And when you are married to a good man, then the marriage turns around because he wants you to be happy. He wants the marriage to work. He wants the problem solved. So he didn't share this to make you wrong or bad, but to give another angle and look at how to solve issues and problems in a marriage by working on ourselves as women. I'm going to read the question here that I got. That was the inspiration for today's video. And again, I wanted to make this a video for women in the new year to be able to make changes and become a happy wife in 2026. And also for the good men watching or who will watch, that maybe this will be a video that your wife will watch coming from a little bit of a softer angle that the question allowed for. So I'm going to read the question and then we'll go from there. So the question, just a simple question. Karen, what made you change into the happy wife you are today? At what point did you realize you were doing serious damage to your marriage and decided to make changes? I can forward your podcast to my wife, but it will be met with resistance and resentment. So thank you to the man that wrote this question and to give me the opportunity to share a little bit of my own journey and story to get to where I am today and to have the Happy Wife School show and channel and podcast and hopefully to inspire other women who are open to my message and want to take a similar path. So thank you so much for these questions. And the first point I want to address is I can forward your podcast to my wife, but it will be met with resistance and resentment. So you're not alone. That's very common when men share my videos with their wives. So again, for the women listening, in case your husband sent you this video, he did it out of care and kindness and love and wanting to fight for the marriage. And for the men who, like this man, say, I could share your videos or podcasts with my wife, but they'll be met with resistance and resentment. You want to know when your wife doesn't want to watch my videos and gets angry and upset, it's showing you that she does not want to change. She doesn't want to look at herself, and she doesn't want to solve the problems. Now, of course, if she comes around after getting angry and upset, then That's a very normal reaction to have initially. And what you want to focus on is she came back around and became open to the message. It's rare that a woman will be open to my message just right off the bat. But if she doesn't come around and she stays angry and upset, then you can know she's the problem, because she doesn't want to work on the problems and look at her part and role. That if you are a good man, it's showing you the reality of your marriage and that you are not the problem, because you want to work on the issues and for your wife to be happy and for the marriage to be happy. So it's simply showing you the reality and the status of your marriage so that you can evaluate, reflect on your values, and make choices about your path moving forward if your wife is not willing to look at herself and change and take accountability. So I wanted to address that first. And then the next place that I'm going to go is answering the two questions that they really go together. First, Karen, what made you change into the happy wife you are today? And second, at what point did you realize you were doing serious damage to your marriage and decided to make changes? So I'm going to go there first, and then at the halfway point of the video, I'm going to give a roadmap for women of how to become a happy wife in 2026. But it's important, and especially if this might be your first introduction to me and listening to my message, it's important to know who I am and my story and where I came from. So that's why I'm going to answer those two questions first and together. So what made me change into the happy wife that I am today? And one of the most important places that I had to come to and continue to embrace in my own journey, because it's not a I got there and I'm done. This is a path to continue improving and working on myself and being the best wife that I can be. For me, it's to feel good about who I am and to benefit and honor my husband, who's a very good man. So the first place that I had to begin to come to is really embracing the role of being a wife. First, I had to embrace the role of being a wife and wanting to be a good wife, wanting to be happy in myself, knowing the effect and impact that has on my marriage and my husband and our household, that I set the tone of our household based on how I'm showing up, how I'm feeling, my own emotional state. So embracing that responsibility, embracing the role of being a wife and wanting to be a happy wife and be a good wife. The problem is, and this is what I had to see and work through in myself, is that wife to many women is like a 4-letter word. Wife is a very triggering concept to us as women, because it makes us feel that we have to be subservient to our husbands and that we will lose any sense of self or independence or identity of our own. And what I had to face and go through in myself, because I was also triggered by the word wife, didn't want to embrace that, is that when we feel that sense of we have to be subservient to a man, we have an intense feeling of rage and anger because of the loss of control that we feel. We have this very intense internal experience that we will lose any sense of self and lose any independence. And so we have made wife a bad word. And if we can't embrace the word wife and embrace the role of being a wife, we're never going to be a happy wife. And we're certainly never going to be a good wife. Unfortunately, feminism has really blurred the lines of our roles as man and wife, and wanting there to be no specific roles or responsibilities to a woman or a man in a marriage, that it should be equal in roles and responsibilities. And it has made it, marriage and being a wife, feminism has made it old-fashioned, out of date, And in that ideology and indoctrination that we've undergone as women in our culture, it's caused us to feel that if we were to be a wife and embrace that role, that we will feel less than a man. And this transition in our culture has not been a healthy one, because the roles of man and wife in a marriage were created to make a marriage work. That we have to have certain roles and responsibilities, and one's not less than the other. But the role of being a wife has allowed me to know myself as a woman and continue to get to know myself as a woman and my strengths and qualities that are very different than my husband's as a man, that I would never know if I continued to try to be the man in the relationship and try to maintain that control and wear the pants in the marriage. It work. It's what destroys a marriage and takes away the essence of what it is supposed to be. And the reality is that when we get married, it creates a team with designated roles and responsibilities. You know, you can think of an organization or a company, and the division of roles and responsibilities is what makes a company or organization succeed or fail. If everyone's trying to do the same roles and responsibilities and have equality in that way, that business or organization is going to fail. And it's the same with a marriage. We need designated roles and responsibilities to make the marriage work. And also, from a personal growth level, to allow ourselves as women to get to know ourselves, and for a man to know himself as a man, that's what those roles are designed for, that I have come to learn for myself. So I had bought in. In my journey, I had bought into the feminist ideology and was very trapped in that, and saw being a wife as a derogatory term and not healthy for my sense of self as a woman. And I had to see and recognize how unhealthy that was, and realize that when I got married, I became a wife. That's what happens when we get married. For the women listening, that's what happens when we get married. We take on the role of being a wife. That's what you become. That's what we're called once we get married. So I had to see, I made vows to be a wife. I made a commitment to my husband to be a wife. And that I have to take those vows and that commitment seriously and be in the role of a wife, because that's what I chose. And I stumble, I fall down, I have to get back up, I have to recommit, I have to remember what my vows are, I have to remember I'm not there yet, that I'm never going to be there, so that I continue to grow and evolve into a wife, to get to know myself and to follow through and keep my word to the commitment and vows that I made to my husband. I didn't get married, so we get scared that our individuality is going to be stripped from us and we're going to lose our independence and our sense of self. And I had to realize that I didn't get married to be an individual. I did not get married to be an individual. I got married to be a part of a team, which means I had to sacrifice being an individual on my own, doing things the way I want, and living in what I refer to as the universe of one. That we do as women, that's what we sacrifice. Because when we become married, or when we get married and become a wife, It's no longer just us, that we're making a commitment to be part of a team and sacrificing our individual single lives because we didn't choose that. We have to realize that if we didn't want to become a wife and fulfill the role and responsibility of being a wife, we should have never, ever gotten married. That should never have been a choice that we made. It's not fair to our husbands. It's also not fair to ourselves to make that choice and make that commitment and make those vows and then not follow through and buck and rebel at their responsibilities and what it means to be a wife. When our husbands got married and made vows as good men, they took them very seriously. Whereas as women, we don't think through our vows and that we are making a commitment to another and that we're becoming a wife and what that actually means and what we have to sacrifice and what we have to commit to and follow through. So the other part of the question is at what point, that was the first step in becoming a happy wife. I'm going to share a little bit more because like I said, these two questions are kind of intertwined, but I want to talk a little bit about the next question. At what point did I realize that I was doing serious damage to my marriage and decided to make changes? Well, very shortly after getting married. So I've been married for 11 years. My husband and I have been together for almost 17 years. Yeah, almost 17 years. And very quickly after getting married, that was 2014. Very quickly, I'd say the early 2015, I realized things were headed south very quickly and realized that we were going to be headed for a divorce. And in my experience and beliefs, I believe God intervened and performed a divine intervention that in early 2015, I met my mentor. And my mentor taught me that no one else had ever taught me, and it was a awakening moment. He taught me I was the problem in my life. And that if I was the problem in my life, then I was empowered to be the solution. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was something that I didn't realize, I can see in hindsight, but it was something I was craving in my life. I had been going to talk therapy for on and off for about 6 or 7 years. I did a lot of spiritual paths and modalities. I was a yoga teacher. I taught meditation. You name it, I tried it. And I was just spinning in circles of my stories of why I was insecure, why I lacked confidence, why I didn't feel like I knew who I was, why I didn't know where my life was going, why I didn't feel my marriage was working out very well. I had a story for everything. And it all pointed outward in blaming either my upbringing or my parents, or, because I was into some weird things back then, blaming past lives. You name it, I could find something to blame my experience on. I had all kinds of wacky ideas of why I had turned out the way that I had and why my life was turning out the way that it was and my marriage turning out the way that it was. And so there was a part of me, because I was trapped in all those stories and trapped in all the blame, that I was craving somebody to tell me I was the problem, because it set me free. When it became just me, that I was the problem, I am the problem, it set me free from all the blame. It set me free from all the stories I had created that I was swimming in in my head that were actually holding me down, keeping me very small, and preventing me from knowing who I was and the potential of who I am in my life. So as I continued to work with that philosophy that I am the problem, and it just like an instantaneous point of freedom in my life, as I said, to cut the ties of all the stories of blame, I continue to work with that philosophy and concept, and that quickly translated into my marriage. And as I built a foundation in me to start to take accountability of myself as the problem in my life, then it laid a foundation that then I was open to seeing that in my marriage with my husband. And I had grown enough to a point where I was ready and mature enough to take that concept into my relationship with my husband and begin to look at myself and how I was showing up as a wife. And that's where I then began to learn from my mentor the psychology of relationships, that every relationship is a reflection of me, which meant my marriage was a reflection of me. And while I was so busy and focused on wanting my husband to change, that the truth, a fundamental truth, was the only person I have control over to change is me. And that continuing to blame and focus on my husband and want him to change was deteriorating the marriage, because my husband, as a good man, bought into the blame, which presents in a marriage from a woman with a good man as emasculation, weakening, shaming, making our husbands wrong and bad for who they are. That's the message we constantly send when we want them to change. That was the message I was constantly sending my husband, wanting him to change. And as a good man, they're susceptible to believing that they are the problem. We're so convincing in our stories of blame, and then that turns into gaslighting our husbands, making them doubt their perception of the marriage, doubt their perception of reality in the relationship, that they begin to believe that they are the problem and begin jumping through the hoops that we set out for them. And it never makes a difference, and we continue to be unhappy, and we continue to move the goalpost further of what we need them to change, how we want them to change it, and then it never makes us happy. That's what I was doing to my husband, and it deteriorates a good man's sense of self and strength in himself, that then he begins to either withdraw or react back. And that can be, a lot of arguing. It can be just becoming really distant. It can result in fights or saying hurtful things. And that's where we lead our husbands to. We draw that out of them to point the finger out. And my husband was kind of a combination of both. I knew where to poke and push his buttons to get him to react. So then his reactions and arguments we would have, and slamming of doors and saying hurtful things, I could use as the ammo against him and validate and hunker down in my victim story. And then he also would withdraw and become very distant in the relationship and very disengaged, which then I could also use as ammo to point the finger out, see how you're the problem, with no awareness of myself and how I was contributing and creating that dynamic in our relationship. So as I began to see that psychology of relationships, that my internal experience was shaping the marriage and was a reflection of me and how I was showing up in the marriage, then I was able to get out of being a victim. I call that camp victim, putting the blame on my husband and pointing the finger out and wanting him to change. It got me out of camp victim into camp take responsibility, that I'm responsible. And in being married to a good man, I'm the problem with a good man. And that if I just change and work on myself to be happy in myself, in control of my emotional state, then my husband reacts positively and engages positively in the relationship as the good man that he is by how I'm showing up. That's how much power we have as women in our emotional state and how we're feeling internally that determines how the marriage or relationship that's going to go. And I had the temper tantrum of that's not fair. I didn't ask for that level of responsibility. I didn't ask for that power or control, and had to get over it to see, but that's the reality. So I could fight it and be upset with it all day long, but that was the reality. And I quickly began to see that as I woke up to that dynamic of how I'm the problem as a woman with a good man, based on my emotional state, based on how I'm showing up, based on how I'm treating my husband. It became crystal clear, because I could see when I was in good space and in a good mood, I could see my husband relax in himself and be himself in the relationship, and we got along great. And then I could see when I was in bad space or bad emotional space and taking it out on him, that he would withdraw or disengage, or we would fight more. And it was crystal clear. I started to see it and learn it experientially in my marriage, and realizing that I can only be a happy wife and can't take responsibility. So for the women listening, you can only be a happy wife and can't take responsibility, because if you're in camp victim, blaming your husband and thinking he's the problem, and you're not willing to look at yourself and you're trying to change him, we don't realize the lens and experience that we create in our marriage, blaming our husbands, and don't realize that the issues and reality that we create from that place of blame and place of camp victim isn't really happening. It's not real. We're creating the experience from camp victim and the negative lens that we create. And in camp victim, focused on our husbands, pointing the finger out, blaming them, there's no awareness of any role that we are playing in the issues of the marriage. There can be no awareness from pointing the finger out and blaming, because we're only focused on our husbands and only focused on what we think that they are doing wrong. And that's why we have to shift the perspective. And that's what I had to do, is to shift the perspective that I can only change myself. So I'm the problem. And that works so well with a good man, because he wants us to be happy. He wants to do his best in the relationship. He wants to take accountability. He wants to lead the relationship in a positive direction. And when we get out of camp victim and stop treating them as poorly as we treat them from camp victim and start being kind, they're right back in the relationship, and they're the good man that we married. He didn't go anywhere. But when we live in camp victim, and constantly blaming them, then we ruin our own perception and lens of the man that we married, and we can't see them as that anymore. We only see them as the man that we've created through the blame and making them the problem. So I had to be woken up to see the serious damage that I was doing to my marriage, and I had to decide that I wanted to change, that it was important to me to change. And now that's led me on to this path of learning and growing into a happy wife. And it's a long-term commitment. It's a long-term journey. And it is why I call my channel The Red Pill, because I was red pilled to see the truth of the situation, that I was the problem in the marriage. And the red pill only works to wake us up as women, to realize the serious damage we're doing in our relationship and marriage. It only works if a woman wants to change and wants to be a wife and wants to be accountable to herself. It would only have worked for me to become a happy wife and continue to commit to doing the things I need to do to be a happy wife and continue growing and learning in that process. It would only worked for me to wake up and see the damage that I was causing because I wanted to change and I wanted to see it. And once I saw it, I could not unsee it. Once I saw it, I could not unsee how I was showing up in the relationship and what I was creating and the damage that I was causing. So I had to want to be accountable to myself. I had to want to change. And that's why it worked for me. And that's why it works. And that's my path. That's exactly what my mentor helped me with, is now helping other women with that very same processing and getting onto the path of becoming a happy wife and taking that journey. And the only women that will hear me are those that want to be woken up and are open-minded and can see themselves and then want to take the steps to change. You can't force someone to see the reality or the truth of what's happening or to look at themselves. You can't force a woman to see the things that I talk about. It will only make her rebel more. And why so many women get angry at my message and at me and won't watch my videos is because they're not in their marriages to be wives. The reason so many women get so upset and angry and won't take a second listen or even open the video and press play is because they didn't get married to be wives. They're not in their marriages to be wives. They're in their marriages to be taken care of and to play the blame game with no accountability for the way the marriage goes. They're trapped in what can my husband give and do for me, and have no sense of awareness or accountability of what can I do for my husband or my marriage. What do I need to be putting back in? And if they feel they're putting it back in, it's only from a place of what they want to be getting, and they're fooling themselves thinking they're putting anything in and showing up the way that they need to show up, or their husbands wouldn't send my videos. So I feel very blessed, very, very blessed to have wanted and continue to want to see the destructive behaviors I bring into my marriage as a woman, and not make myself bad or wrong in that or beat myself up. Just know this is my path, and this is the path to being a happy woman and a happy wife for myself and for my husband. And feel this was meant to be of what I'm supposed to be doing in my life, what God put me here to do. And it really boils down to having integrity. That integrity, I decided, was something that was important to me and something that I valued. And I had to reflect on what kind of person and woman do I want to be? What kind of character do I want to have? And recognizing the significant impact that has on my husband and has on my marriage. And that's how I got here, and continue to walk this path. And as I think I said a little earlier, I fall down, I stumble, I mess things up, and then I have to recommit, pull myself back up, and I have to keep taking the flashlight out. But I want to, because I want to look at the ways I'm showing up that are not conducive or constructive to having a healthy, happy marriage, because my marriage is really important to me. And being a wife and being a good wife and a happy wife is really important to me. So I want to keep growing and learning in that path. And that's what any woman who watches my videos or my content has to decide for herself. Because if you don't embrace the role of being a wife, if you don't want to look at yourself and be accountable, you will continue to be a victim and blame your husband, and you'll have a very miserable marriage, or it will end in divorce. And then you'll start the same thing with another man, and it will go down the exact same road. So that's how I got here. So the next place that I want to go is starting to get into how to be a happy wife, or how to become a happy wife in 2026, and giving women a little bit of a roadmap and teaching a concept that has been critical to me in becoming and continuing to grow and evolve into a happy wife. And that's where we're headed. So first, I want to define what is a happy wife, because a happy wife is not the emotion of being happy. It's not having the emotional experience of being happy. That comes from what I call a happy pill facade, where we slap a smile on our face. We say the right things. We wear the facade of being happy, pretending everything is wonderful, presenting ourselves as being all put together. But that's not what it means to be a happy wife. And it's not that emotional experience or the facade of being happy. A happy wife is a woman who has a healthy relationship with herself and lives and can't take responsibility. Can't take responsibility is I am responsible for my experience of myself and my marriage. Nothing is happening to me. And can't take responsibility, it also means, and this is what I had to come to for myself, can't take responsibility also means nothing in my past or upbringing, no trauma, has any power over me. Can't take responsibility is being a grown-up adult. That as a grown-up adult, I have the choice over my experience of myself and my life. I can't control everything that happens in my life, but I'm in control of my response and how I navigate and move through the challenges and experiences that come up in life, and certainly in a marriage. That I'm in control over how I respond because I am a grown-up adult. And grown-up adults have the ability to choose how they want to perceive their life, their life's events, and how they want to choose to move forward and react and respond in the face of life. So what does it mean that a woman has a healthy relationship with herself? If being a happy wife is a woman who has a healthy relationship with herself and lives and can't take responsibility, which I just defined, what does it mean that a woman has a healthy relationship with herself? It means that we care for ourselves. We value who we are by showing up and being our best. If I show up and I'm my best for me, everyone gets the benefit of that, including my husband. But we have to care for ourselves. We must value who we are and make ourselves important by living a life of integrity and character to do our best always. That's what it means to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. Which means I have to be willing to look at the ways that I don't care for myself, the ways that I show myself I don't value who I am, that I'm not important to me, and that I'm not doing my best, so that I have the self-awareness to be able to make those changes, to live a life where I do value myself and care for myself. The reason that this is the foundation, having a healthy relationship with yourself and living and can't take responsibility, is the foundation to being a happy wife. Because you don't become a happy wife by working on your marriage and the problems in your marriage. It's going to keep you trapped in camp victim, blaming your husband, thinking he's got to do his part to change his role in the issues and problems. So becoming a happy wife, you might be thinking, Karen, why are you talking about having a healthy relationship with yourself and what does that have to do with being a happy wife? I want to know how to be a happy wife and change the things I need to change in my marriage. Coming back to what I teach about the psychology of relationships, that my marriage is a reflection of me. Your marriage is a reflection of you. So you don't become a happy wife by working on your marriage and trying to be a good wife. You will just go around in circles and beat your head against a wall because you'll run up against the same problems over and over and over again. Becoming a happy wife happens by working on yourself to become a happy woman, by having a healthy relationship with yourself where you care about yourself and value yourself, and you live and can't take responsibility. that I'm responsible for the experience of myself, my life, and my marriage. And when you do that, you have an internal experience of feeling good about yourself, which is then reflected in your marriage. So that's why we have to just focus on ourselves to build a healthy relationship with ourselves, and then we can be a happy wife and have a healthy relationship with our husbands. So how do we build? If the foundation of being a happy wife is having a healthy relationship with yourself, how do we do that? How do we build a healthy relationship with ourselves? A critical component of that path for me and building a healthy relationship with myself that I want to teach you is called parenting yourself. Parenting yourself is a path to building and having a healthy relationship with yourself. So what does that mean? What does it mean to parent yourself? Parenting yourself is doing what you know you need to do, even when you don't want to do it. Parenting yourself is doing what you know you need to do, even when you don't want to do it. It is the epitome of personal accountability and being a grown-up adult. The opposite of parenting ourselves is doing what we want when we want, which is a path to have no value in ourselves, no character, no integrity, and no importance to ourselves. So parenting yourself is a very practical tool to begin to build personal accountability to do the things you know you need to do even when you don't want to do them. It's not about slugging yourself through it and powering through and doing it with a bad attitude and resentment. It's actually an engaged process of slowing down, recognizing the temper tantrum of not wanting to do the things you know you need to do, and slowing down to come from the perspective of, I'm doing this to build a healthy relationship with myself, to show myself that I care, to show myself that I value who I am, and I want to be a woman of character and integrity so that I feel good about myself and who I am. So some examples of parenting yourself are very simple day-to-day responsibilities that we have as grown-up adults. Some examples of parenting yourself. Number 1, waking up with your alarm and showering and getting ready for the day. Number 2, not using social media on your phone or scrolling and checking out on your phone. Number 3, parenting yourself to wash the dishes and put them away before you go to bed, and leaving no dishes in the sink, no dishes in the drying rack, no dishes in the dishwasher. Number 4, folding the laundry and putting it away. And the 5th example, making healthy meals and not ordering takeout. So as you can see, these are very simple day-to-day responsibilities that we have as grown-up adults that we either, one, don't do, using the waking up with alarm, hitting snooze, getting up a little bit early, changing the alarm to be 30 minutes later, or saying, oh, I'm way too tired, let's just get takeout. The second is we power through these things and we do them begrudgingly and feel burdened and put out and are resentful and angry and do it because we know we're supposed to, but there's no connection to ourselves. So as I said, parenting is a very engaged process with a very specific purpose, that when we parent ourselves, we are being grown-up adults and we're making choices and decisions that make us feel good about ourselves. The purpose of doing these things, because they can seem pretty inconsequential. Like, who cares if I fold the laundry and put it away or not? Who cares if I wash the dishes and put all the dishes away before I go to bed? Who's checking in on that? Who cares, right? But the purpose of parenting ourselves is, in doing these things for ourselves, is to feel good about who we are, to show ourselves that we're important, that we matter, that we're worth the effort, which makes us feel good internally. So it's and it's how you hold yourself accountable and have integrity. It's who you are when no one's looking. When we do what we want when we want, it makes us feel really bad about ourselves. So let's go through those examples. When you hit snooze, or you don't shower and get ready for the day, and you just grunge out, throw your hair up, don't put makeup on, don't get dressed in clothes that make you feel good, you feel bad about yourself. You're shortcutting yourself. You're showing yourself, I don't value me. When you get up with your alarm, you don't hit snooze, you get ready, you shower, and you do it for the purpose of, I matter, I'm important to me, you feel good about yourself. When you doom scroll and spend hours on your phone scrolling through social media, you feel bad about yourself. When you stay off your phone, you stay off social media and engaged in your life, you feel good about yourself. When you leave the dishes in the sink and you don't wash them and say, I'll just do them tomorrow morning, you don't feel good about yourself. When you wash the dishes, you put them away, you feel good about who you are. When you leave your clothes or your family's clothes in hampers all over the place, or leave them in the dryer and don't put them away, you feel bad about yourself. When you take the time to do the laundry and fold the clothes and put them away, you feel good about who you are. Lastly, when you make healthy meals for your husband, your kids, and yourself, and you don't order takeout, you feel good about yourself. When you constantly order takeout and tell yourself you're too tired and don't want to, you feel bad about yourself. This is what's happening internally that we suppress or don't know to look at, that destroys our sense of value, destroys our sense of care for ourselves. The message being, when we parent ourselves and do the things we know we need to do, even when we don't want to do them, and we do them as a grown-up adult with a good attitude and the purpose of, I want to feel good about myself and value who I am, then we know we are worth the effort. I'm worth the effort to take the time and slow down and do the dishes before I go to bed. It's not the dishes being put away that makes me feel good about myself. It's that I overcame not wanting to do it and did it anyway that makes me feel good about myself. When I blow myself off and I take shortcuts and I don't follow through, I don't feel good about myself. And then I show myself I'm not worth the extra effort. So parenting yourself builds a healthy relationship with yourself in 3 ways. Number 1, you feel important and valued by yourself by doing the things that make you feel good about who you are. When you parent yourself and show yourself that you are worth the effort, number 1, it builds a healthy relationship with yourself because you feel important and valued by yourself by doing the things that make you feel good about who you are. The second way that parenting yourself builds a healthy relationship with yourself is that it creates a me. It creates a me, that there's someone in here that I am caring for, that matters. When we have no relationship with ourselves and we live in camp victim, blaming, there's no me. We've erased ourselves because we feel like we don't matter. And the third way that parenting yourself builds a healthy relationship with yourself, and one of the most important ways that builds a healthy relationship with yourself, because there's a me in there and you're connected with who you are, It cultivates self-awareness. Parenting yourself butts you up against the things you don't want to do and helps to cultivate self-awareness of your patterns and behaviors that are destructive to yourself, your life, and your marriage. And when you have that self-awareness, then you can choose healthier patterns and behaviors and catch yourself when you're taking shortcuts and not being your best. And those are the 3 ways that parenting yourself builds a healthy relationship with you. So what this all means, the big picture, is that you have a choice in how you feel about yourself. You have a choice in how you feel about yourself. How you feel internally isn't happening to you. It's not your past. It's not your upbringing. It's not your husband. It's not abandonment issues. It's not daddy issues. It's not trauma. You are the one that makes you feel good or makes you feel bad. Anything else that has happened in your past is irrelevant. It's how we show up and the choices and decisions we make, even the really small ones, like to wake up with our alarm or not, that create our experience of how we feel about ourselves, which determines the relationship that we have with ourselves, whether we're happy or not happy. That nothing in your past has any power over this choice, that it's up to you. That's what parenting teaches us, that if I take shortcuts, if I'm making unhealthy choices behind closed doors when no one's looking and doing what I want when I want, I'm going to feel really bad about myself. But if I'm parenting myself to follow through and be a grown-up adult and do the things I know I need to do when I don't want to do them, then I'm going to feel really good about myself. It's just a choice. And it makes anything in our past or anything that's happened to us irrelevant. When I parent myself and show myself that I'm important to me, that I value who I am, when you parent yourself and show yourself you're important and value who you are, you will like yourself, you will feel in control of your emotional state, and you will like your life, including your marriage. Because when you parent yourself and you do the things to show yourself that you're important and you value yourself, you create a completely different lens of yourself, of how you view yourself. Because now you view yourself through the lens of, I like who I am, I'm in control of my emotional state, I have emotional intelligence to be self-aware and how I'm showing up. And that creates, then I like my life, including my marriage, including my husband. And that's why happiness is an internal experience of how we feel about ourselves, as opposed to an external experience of the things and people in our lives making us happy and feel good about ourselves. That's what puts us into camp victim. So how does this translate into being a happy wife? Well, from the lens of valuing who you are and liking who you are and feeling good about yourself internally, treating yourself with care and treating yourself as important and with love, that then gets reflected in your marriage. That from that place you treat your husband with care, love, and that he is important to you because it is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. That it's the opposite of when you feel bad about yourself by taking shortcuts and having unhealthy patterns and behaviors of doing what you want when you want and not following through, not doing the things that show you care about who you are. When you feel bad about yourself, that's the internal experience that gets reflected in your marriage onto your husband. That when you feel bad about yourself, your internal emotional state is beating yourself up, feeling wrong and bad, feeling shame in who you are, And then to avoid those painful feelings about yourself, we put that onto our husbands and we emotionally beat them up, criticize who they are, shame them, make them wrong and bad because we're blaming them for our internal experience to not have to look at ourselves. And that's why the psychology of relationships works so well, that my marriage is a reflection of me. So when you change to feel good about yourself by parenting yourself and doing the things to value who you are, that then gets reflected in your marriage, and you treat your husband with the love, care, and respect that you are giving yourself. When you take shortcuts and do what you want when you want, and you don't take accountability, then you don't care about yourself, you don't love yourself, and you're not important to you. So you're treating yourself with disrespect and anger and blame and hatred. And then that's how you treat your husband. So it's counterintuitive. That's why you don't work on being a happy wife by doing the things you're supposed to do as a wife. You have to work on yourself internally to build a healthy relationship with yourself that then translates into your marriage and being a happy wife. If you try to do the things to be a good wife and a happy wife, you're just putting a Band-Aid over the real issue, which is the relationship you have with yourself. So that's why you have to work on you to have a healthy, happy relationship with you. And parenting yourself is a wonderful roadmap and tangible tool that you can use heading into the new year, into 2026, to be a happy wife and become a happy wife for you and for your husband to get the benefit, and all the poor behaviors and how you're treating your husband will begin to disappear over time as you build the muscle and build the internal experience of feeling good about who you are. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only, that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.